Amazing rescue. Struggling single dad saves girl from bridge. Her incredible secret revealed, Jack trudged across the bridge, the fading daylight casting shadows that mirrored his weariness. Another long shift at the garage, followed by hours stocking shelves at the convenience store, left his body aching and mind racing with numbers, bills, groceries, essentials for Tyler. Each day was a grueling chess match against life, a balance of sacrifice and duty, where dreams like forgotten relics lay dusty on the floor of his heart. He thought of the art class he never dared take, the guitar that sat in the corner instead of resting in his hands, and the unvisited landscapes of his imagination. He gripped the railing, steadying himself as he took a breath, wrestling with an urge to explode into grief but ignoring it for Tyler's sake. At that moment, he spotted a girl a few feet away, swaying dangerously close to the edge. Panic jabbed at Jack's gut, urging him forward. "Don't do it!" he shouted, hurtling toward her as adrenaline kicked in. The weight of his own world fell away, replaced by a primal determination. As he reached her, a wave of empathy collided with his fears. She looked lost and fragile, but he wasn't about to let her become another loss he would carry with him. He reached out, his rough fingers wrapping around her wrist, pulling her back to solid ground. Thank God! His heart thundered, bewildered by the shift from despair to desperate relief. "Are you okay?" he croaked, breathless. She nodded, the flicker of tears in her eyes glimmering under the twilight. "Mia," she whispered, introducing herself. As they drifted into conversation, Jack discovered her secret: the artistry trapped inside her, a vibrant world held hostage by financial insecurity and suffocating expectations. Their lives, though separate, bore striking similarities. He heard the weight she carried, Jack felt it, too, a relentless pressure to create a life that met everyone's needs but their own. Before long, they began to meet. They painted murals in alleys that spoke of resilience and hope. Each stroke on the canvas felt like an echo from inside him, rekindling ambitions long extinguished. For Jack, this artistic pursuit became a burst of sunlight amid his dark, grueling labor. But as recognition began to glimmer on the horizon for both of them, so too did reality rear its head. One evening, he returned home to a letter, a promotion offer laid out in crisp paper, a chance to finally breathe financially, but at a cost. The more money would mean more time at the shop, possibly leaving Mia and their shared dreams behind. A tightness formed in his chest. He could visualize Tyler's bright face but also see Mia's creativity dimming. Would he walk away from this lifeline thrown by fate, or would he veer off course, turning his back on the only remnants of joy he had? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. His thoughts spiraled furiously. Could he sacrifice the possibility of a better future for Tyler's sake, or would this larger paycheck meant to ease his burden only serve to smother his spirit? Jack's pulse quickened, every part of him churning in a tempest of anguish and determination. In the shadows of his mind, whispers of self-doubt clawed at his resolve. Jack stood at a crossroads. One path promised stability, the other, a chance to fight for the artistic light flickering in both Mia and himself. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, he realized he had never felt so torn in his life. The world around him tightened, leaving Jack on a precipice, the weight of his choices pressing down harder than ever before. What would he choose? How could he decide what was best for all their futures? Jack paced his small living room, the promotion letter crumpled in his fist, the weight of the decision a crushing presence. He felt like he was drowning, each breath a reminder of the stakes involved, and he struggled to reconcile his needs with Tyler's well-being. A voice whispered within him, urging him to grasp the opportunity. More money meant less worry about food and bills. Yet another voice countered, rooted in the hope he was beginning to nurture with Mia, a hope that blossomed every time they painted together. Tyler dashed into the room, his laughter ringing like a bell, the stark contrast to Jack's tumultuous thoughts. "Daddy, look! I drew a rocket!" the boy exclaimed, holding up a scribbled masterpiece of red and blue crayon. Jack's heart softened as he knelt to examine the creation. "Wow! That's amazing, buddy! You're going to be an astronaut," he replied, forcing a smile to mask the storm brewing inside him. Tyler's energy was infectious. He was a reminder of innocence and possibility, of dreams worth pursuing. But the ticking clock in Jack's mind didn't allow him to linger. He had to make a choice, and soon he recalled the evenings spent with Mia, her laughter mixing with vibrant colors on the canvas. Those moments were salt on wounds he thought he'd long healed, igniting flickers of hope that suggested life could be fuller than survival. Work was work, but this had struck chords of passion in a heart that had been taut and weary. Would he willingly trade those experiences for financial security? The thought felt like a betrayal. That night, unable to sleep, Jack turned to the guitar he had tucked away. Dust swirled in the air as he coaxed it from its corner. Fingers trembling, he picked at the strings, each note a gentle plea to awaken long-buried dreams. The sound resonated, bathing him in a solace he'd forgotten. Here was an outlet, an escape, the very essence of who he used to be before life dictated his path. With each strum, Jack envisioned Mia, her artistic spirit weaving around him like the colors they spread across the murals. Perhaps he could start mixing the practicality of his life with the dreams they cultivated together. Perhaps there was a middle ground, a way to support Tyler while nurturing this newfound flame of creation. He decided he needed to talk to Mia, to see if this dream could materialize into something real, something they could embrace together. The next day, Jack sought her out, desiring to share this newfound resolve. He arrived at their usual meeting spot, an alley splashed with their previous artwork. As he approached, he saw Mia painting, her focus intent, transforming the bare wall into a swirling masterpiece. He marveled at the ease in her movements, the way her spirit shone through every brushstroke. For a moment, he felt a swell of admiration, but then doubt crept back in. Would she understand? Would she choose ambition over passion? As she paused to greet him, her eyes twinkling with enthusiasm, Jack's heart raced. The moment had come. The choice between comforting certainty and the uncharted territory of their shared aspirations loomed large. He had to tell her about the promotion, about his frustration, and about how much he had come to cherish their time together, but just as he opened his mouth, the silence around them cracked like glass. A figure emerged from the shadows, a frown etched across her face. His boss. "Jack, we need to talk." "You're going to want to hear this," she said, a grim determination in her tone. His stomach dropped. The moment was slipping from his grasp. Here sat the crossroads, and now an authoritative presence demanding his attention. Everything he had built up, the dreams, the life he yearned for, now wavered in uncertainty. As anxiety twisted within him, the weight of his decisions bore down heavier than ever. Would he choose what was familiar, or the uncertain path towards a new, perhaps more fulfilling, journey? The moment of truth was at hand. Jack's breath hitched as he processed his boss's presence looming in front of him, ready to shatter the delicate moment he had hoped to embrace with Mia. The world felt deafeningly quiet, only the sound of his heartbeat drummed in his ears. This was the conversation that could spiral his life in a direction he hadn't intended, toward a career he didn't love but required for survival. "Jack, I know this is sudden," his boss began, though the urgency in her tone suggested otherwise. "But we have an opportunity for you to lead a new project. We're confident in your abilities and think you're the right person for the job." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, clouding his thoughts. Led a project? It was a commendation, a sign that his hard work had paid off, yet it felt hollow as visions of painting murals with Mia danced behind his eyelids. "It's a demanding role. It will require a lot of time and commitment," she pressed, sensing his hesitation. Jack looked at Mia, her eyes wide with curiosity, a stark contrast to his inner turmoil. He wanted to share everything: the promotion, his conflicting feelings, and how much more fulfilling his evenings spent with her had become. But her expression, filled with intrigue, pushed him to choose his words tightly. Would she see this as a temporary distraction, a step away from their shared passion? "I appreciate the offer," he managed, the tension in his voice palpable. "But I need to think about it." His boss nodded, though he could see disappointment flicker across her features. "Of course, but just remember, these chances often slip away quickly." She turned and walked away, her presence swiftly replaced by a deafening silence that filled the alley. Mia stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "So, what was that about?" There was no judgment in her tone, only genuine curiosity. Yet Jack felt exposed, standing between what felt like duty and desire. Just work stuff, he replied, attempting to dismiss the weight of it with a wave of his hand. Yet internally, the storm raged. Would he reject another opportunity to step up or let ambition drown his spirit? The taste of freedom he de-savored while being with Mia lingered heavily in his mouth. "Are you okay?" she probed, taking a step closer. Her concern ignited something in Jack, a sense of protection over this burgeoning relationship they were developing amidst chaos. "I'm trying to figure it all out," he said, the sincerity of his words spilling into the air. "It feels like every time I decide on something else, something big comes in and complicates everything." Mia studied him, her eyes insightful and unwavering. "Complications are part of life, Jack. But you're stronger than you think, you know?" Her belief in him was a balm to his turmoil, yet it also layered the complexity of the moment. Would Mike's unwavering trust lead him to dismiss the possible new pathways unfolding at that very moment? As he watched her paint, the vibrancy of the colors illuminating the wall reflected the battle waged within him. Maybe this was more than a choice between two paths, it was also an opportunity for transparency with Mia. He needed to show her his vulnerabilities, to admit that he was at a crossroads of ambition and fear. "I'm scared," he blurted out, the words flying from his mouth unbidden. "Scared that I'll disappoint Tyler. Scared that I'll lose this," he gestured between them, "if I choose to pursue something that pays well." Mia stepped back, her paintbrush pausing in midair, and for an instant, the alley felt charged with unspoken tension. "Why do you think you'd lose me? Or lose this?" she asked, her voice tender yet confrontational. "I don't know if I can do both," he confessed, the brutal honesty hanging heavy in the air. She nodded slowly, processing his words, but inside Jack knew he faced not just the fear of his choices but the fear of stepping into his own power. He had to confront the complexity of his feelings head-on. "I can't let this slip away," he whispered, mostly to himself, as a new understanding blossomed within him. In that moment, he grasped that the real decision wasn't about choosing this or that. It was about embracing all parts of himself, the ambitious father, the devoted artist, the man yearning for connection. But how he could bring those fragments together felt more elusive than ever. The silence between them seemed to fold in on itself, creating an almost palpable heaviness as Jack gathered the courage to leave the comfort of ambiguity, knowing it was only the first step toward a greater revelation. Little did he know, light was about to break through the clouds of doubt, revealing a path he had never imagined he could travel. "Jack," Mia's voice interrupted his spiraling thoughts, "what if we make some plans together? Not for money or anything else, but for art? For life?" The question ignited something visceral in him, setting fire to a flame he had almost let extinguish entirely. Could this be the bridge to a resolution he had long sought? What lay on the other side of that question was obscured, but Jack felt a tug of possibility begin to guide him forward, just as a new challenge loomed closer than ever, one that required confronting himself in an unprecedented way. Jack stood there, the evening shadows stretching long in the alley as he considered Mia's invitation. It was a question that fractured the silence and echoed in his mind. Plans together, he mused, the words feeling like both a lifeboat and a weight. Making art had always been his refuge, a territory where he felt competent and alive. Yet, this venture, fused with the specter of responsibility and uncertainty about his impending career move, felt heavier than it had any right to be. "Together?" he echoed, not quite understanding how it could transform what he cherished into something communal. "Yeah," Mia replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "We can start with your ideas. That mural you mentioned. We could transform this whole alley, it could be a statement piece." Her excitement was infectious, but Jack wrestled with his sense of self-doubt. Art was supposed to be liberating, but he could already feel the tight grip of expectations wrapping around him. Would this venture dissolve their connection if dashed dreams colored their artistic collaboration? Could they even separate creativity from ambition? "Why do you want to do this with me?" he asked, more unleashed than curious. The sincerity of his inquiry brought a fleeting moment of vulnerability, yet he needed to know if she saw him clearly, if she understood the stakes involved. "Because," she said, tilting her head slightly, "seeing you light up when you talk about art made me want to catch those moments. I think it's what you need, and I want to be there." Her words landed like a lifeline and a challenge. Maybe stepping into this next chapter didn't mean abandoning his responsibilities but weaving them into a life that included his passion. As he wrestled with this thought, Jack felt the walls he had built around his ambitions begin to tremble. What if he stumbled, tentative yet hopeful? What if we opened a studio together? Something small to start with, where people can not only learn but create. And we can make our artwork visible to the community without the pressure of corporate agendas. The idea surprised him as much as it likely surprised her. It was an avenue he hadn't considered which redefined his struggles. Before he could second-guess his own ambition, he saw the spark ignite in her eyes. "Jack," she whispered excitedly, "that could be amazing. But we'll need a plan, money to get started." "I know," he resumed, the words tumbling from him. "But what if we keep it low-key to begin with? Plan some workshops, gather some local artists, fundraise." He was stepping into unfamiliar territory, each idea echoing his desire for change but weighted by anxiety. Mia dropped her paintbrush, stepping closer once again. "You're not just a single dad struggling to make it. You're a talented artist with a vision. Don't you see how you could inspire others?" Her question untangled the knots in his chest. Here was the stark truth: inspiration often lies dormant until the heart commits to a path. But fear still lingered. Could he nurture this aspiration while juggling his current responsibilities? Could he bear the risk of failure in pursuit of something so deeply desired? "I won't let this slip away," he replied, firming his resolve. "I won't allow the weight of a paycheck to crush my spirit any longer." With that statement, he began crafting a mental blueprint of how he could integrate his dual responsibilities as an artist and father. "And what about work?" Mia pressed gently, drawing him back to a critical point. "What if they need you there more than ever?" Jack felt a sharp pang at her words. Yet a whisper in his mind beckoned him to challenge the status quo. Wasn't he the one who had to shift the narrative? "Then I would find a way to negotiate. To carve out my space and set boundaries. My growth cannot come at the expense of what lights my soul on fire." As they stood in that alley, the dusk deepening around them, Jack could almost perceive the substance forming between them, a shared dream chiseling itself out of possibility and ambition. "Let us start small, and we'll grow from there," Jack concluded, with newfound clarity warming his spirit. All of it a new project and a new dawn. But moments like these were often sparse in life, and as the excitement bubbled, Jack sensed another wave of reality crash on the horizon. He still had to confront the company's expectations and his own apprehensions. "Jack," Mia said with gravity as they wrapped up the impromptu brainstorming, "you know this won't be easy. You'll have to stand your ground, and not everyone will support you." "There is more at stake," he conceded, heart racing at the tension woven into his commitment to change. The path ahead possessed twists no one could predict, lurking shadows entwined with illuminated ideas. He just didn't want to lose sight of his newfound determination. As they parted ways, Jack felt a familiar charge in the air. He was on the edge of something monumental. The interplay of ambition and the fear of loss danced at the fringes of his thoughts, each tugging him toward their respective realms. What awaited him next would not only test the resolve he had begun to embrace but could also illuminate dark truths about the very fabric of his choices. "Soon, Jack," he muttered to himself, "you'll have to face them all." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of purple and gold, mirroring the tumult within Jack's mind. He walked home, each step punctuating his burgeoning resolve with trepidation. The alley, once just a canvas for his dreams, now felt like a crossroads, each path equally fraught with uncertainty. Arriving at his modest apartment, Jack was greeted by the hum of life within. His daughter, Lily, was in the living room, surrounded by crayons and sheets of paper, a small universe of color and creativity. Seeing her lost in joy ignited something in him. This was the reminder he needed. Despite the weight of his ambitions, he couldn't forget the joy of creation that had first inspired him. "Hey, kiddo," he said, plopping down next to her. She looked up, her face lighting up with a smile, and it reminded him that his pursuits would also reflect in her life. "Daddy, look. I'm drawing a picture for school," she said, her small fingers working diligently on the page. The colors on the paper danced vividly, each stroke revealing not only her imagination but also the spark of artistry that echoed what Jack felt deep inside. "That's beautiful, Lily. I love it, he encouraged, his heart swelling. This was precisely why he had to pursue his projects with Mia. They could create something impactful not just for themselves but for children like Lily, nurturing creativity in the next generation. His mind raced with thoughts as he wrapped his arms around Lily. She needed to see her father not simply as someone who provided, but as a creator, a dreamer, willing to chase his passions. I've got something important to talk to you about, he ventured, forcing himself to look her in the eyes. What is it? She asked, her curiosity piqued. Remember how I always paint? Well, I'm thinking about opening a space where kids can come and create like you do with your drawings, he explained, choosing his words carefully. He wanted to share this vision without burdening her with the uncertainties of adulthood. Like a place where I can paint with my friends? She squealed, her excitement mirroring the vibrant colors on her page. Exactly. He found himself smiling at her unfiltered joy. That pure passion made his heart race but also brought forth the chilling weight of his own fears. Could he really pull this off? Would they have enough time and resources? But you have work, right? Lily's innocent question struck him. It was the inevitable reality check she unknowingly delivered. How could he juggle a job that drained him and the drive to create this new venture? Yeah, I do. But I'm going to figure it out. I won't let the job stop me from pursuing what makes me happy, or what makes you happy, he promised, though uncertainty lingered like a shadow in his mind. As Jack anchored himself in this fresh commitment, a flood of realization dawned on him. He couldn't simply negotiate his current role without exploring the depths of what he was willing to sacrifice for success. Could he risk complacency for a risk-filled journey that could ultimately inspire both himself and his daughter? He tapped into that inner resolve, a quiet rebellion against a life lived too cautiously. Over the next few days, Jack found himself researching studio space options, outlining workshop ideas, and connecting with local artists to create a network. Each small step chipped away at the facade of fear, revealing a growing confidence. Yet, as he ventured into this newfound determination, moments of doubt crept in, whispering fears of failure and the potential backlash from his job. Colleagues who prioritized their own ambitions often ridiculed those who dared to try something different. What if they attempted to stifle his aspirations? The thought made his palms sweat. Determined to confront these thoughts, he set up a meeting with his boss. Jack practiced his pitch, the vision of not merely being an artist but a community catalyst, over and over in his mind. It was uncomfortable, daunting, but necessary. One evening, as he prepared to leave for the office, Lily's voice broke through his thoughts. Daddy, remember, you said you'd do it for us. Don't be scared. Her simple, innocent support was the fuel he needed. He took a deep breath and imagined the mural in the alley and the studio filled with laughter and creativity. The vision ignited his spirit, pushing him beyond the confines of fear, but as Jack opened the door, his heart raced with the knowledge that he was teetering on the edge of change. Today would either catalyze his quest forward or serve as a reminder of his confines. The time had indeed come to face the people who could shake his dreams. With resolve hardening inside him, Jack took one last look at the vibrant landscape of colors in Lily's drawings, anchoring himself firmly. Today was not just another day in the life of a struggling artist. It was the moment to reclaim his narrative. What awaited him in that conference room could alter the trajectory of not just his career, but his entire life, and he would not back down without a fight. The stakes were high, and the weight of ambition hung like a shadow, but the time had come to confront the enemies of his dreams. Jack stepped into the unknown, primed for the confrontation that could define his future. Jack entered the office building, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the evening sun, fading beyond the glass doors. With each step toward the conference room, he fought the rising tide of doubt washing over him. A sudden flash of uncertainty hit as he remembered the faces of some of his colleagues, of their relentless ambition and murmurings of mockery aimed at those who dared to dream differently. But he clutched the vision of Lily's drawing, the unrestrained joy in her eyes guiding him. Taking a deep breath, he straightened his posture and pushed through the glass door. He was greeted by the sight of his boss seated at the head of the long, polished table, flanked by a few members of the management team. They were discussing routine matters when Jack entered, their conversations faltering as they noticed him. Jack, right on time, his boss said, gesturing for him to join. Jack slid into the chair, wiping clammy palms on his trousers, the stakes heavier than he had anticipated. As they resumed discussions, he fought to keep his focus on the agenda. He could feel their eyes on him, analyzing, appraising. Jack reminded himself he had a purpose beyond these walls. He wasn't just presenting ideas for dismissal, he was fighting for a new chapter of his life, not just for himself, but for Lily. When the moment arrived for him to speak, he cleared his throat, projecting clarity over the anxiety wrenching at his stomach. I want to discuss what it means to create space for creativity, community, and inspiration, he started, surprising himself with the strength of his voice. What kind of space? One of his colleagues interjected, skepticism knitting their brows. An art space, he continued, emboldened by his passion. A workshop where kids can express themselves just like my daughter Lily does. A place for creativity to thrive. The silence that followed felt heavy, each second stretching into an eternity. Jack scanned their faces, searching for signs of support or derision. The murmurs resumed, now tinted with a tone of amusement, but he pressed on. This was no time for hesitation. Many children never have access to spaces where they can explore their potential. I believe we can be catalysts for change, he said, his conviction growing with each word. He spoke of collaboration with local artists, engaging workshops, and the ability to foster community through creativity, but as he spoke, doubt seeped in again. What if they dismissed his vision as nothing more than a fantastical daydream? The memories of discouragement echoed, but Jack remembered Lily's encouragement, and he dug deeper into his conviction. But what if it fails? Came another query, laden with doubt. This isn't just about success. It's about creating an environment where dreams take root, regardless of the outcome. Failure is part of the journey, it's how we inspire others to keep trying, Jack responded, the fire in his belly igniting his resolve. He watched as the atmosphere shifted, apprehensive gazes softened into thoughtful expressions. The room fell silent, each individual processing his proposition. But then the moment of truth arrived when his boss leaned back, arms crossed. And how does this address your current workload? Do you expect to do this while keeping up with your responsibilities here? It sounds lofty, but can you really handle both? Jack felt the weight of his question pressing down. It was both a challenge and a revelation, a reckoning of internal conflict. The tangible choice lay bare before him: continue on the current trajectory, comfortable yet stifling, or take a leap into the unknown, risking everything for the chance to live authentically, finally embodying the creator he had been yearning to become. I can manage my time. I can find balance, Jack asserted, but he recognized that it was more than just time management. This was about conviction. If I don't pursue this passion, it would eat away at me. I'll find a way to create that balance. There was a long pause before his boss finally nodded, considering this unexpected tenacity. All right, let us say we explore this, but I need more details. You better come prepared next time. Relief washed over Jack. This was not a defeat, it was an opening, a chance to expand the vision. As he left that meeting, however, the thrill of success morphed into anxiety. The challenge presented to him loomed large. How could he turn a concept into reality? Each decision carried weight, potential consequences spiraling outward. Jack stepped into the cacophony of the busy street, vibrant city sounds swirling around him, yet inside, he felt a dissonant hum, a clash between ambition and fear. Could he truly create such a space? Would they really support him as he risked it all? He needed clarity, and he needed to act fast. The possibilities stretched boundlessly ahead, but lurking in the corners of his mind was a question that draped itself like a shroud. What if the very people he sought to inspire instead quashed his efforts? A glance back at the corporate building fueled his resolve. Tomorrow, he would start to draft a comprehensive proposal filled with color, energy, and the spirit of creativity. This would have to reflect not just his ambition, but the vision he envisioned for Lily. Yet as he walked home, the shadows of doubt crept alongside him, whispering caution, reminding him that the next steps could unravel everything he had begun to build. Would he be able to withstand the pressures from work while igniting his creative venture? The flickering lights from his apartment signaled home, but as he entered, that nagging thought lingered: how far was he willing to go to protect his dreams? The following morning, Jack awoke with the sun casting rays of light through the blinds, illuminating the tiny art supplies strewn across the coffee table. Lily's drawings adorned the walls, vibrant bursts of color amidst the beige backdrop of his apartment. Each piece echoed her creative spirit, a reminder of what he was fighting for. But as he glanced at his phone, the reality of the day before weighed heavily on him. His boss's words loomed large. There was no room for failure. He brewed a cup of coffee, allowing the familiar aroma to settle his nerves. He knew he had to channel the energy from the meeting, but uncertainty trickled through his veins. The proposal he had to construct was more than just a document, it was the bridge to his aspirations, and each word would either build or break his dreams. Jack pulled out his laptop and began drafting the proposal. The cursor blinked mockingly, a digital clock counting down the moments he feasted on indecision. He knew he needed a strong opening, a hook that grabbed attention and demanded to be heard. As words began to flow from his fingertips, he found himself in a rhythm. The proposed art space will serve as a sanctuary for young artists, he typed, the statement resonating in his head. It reflected a part of him he never fully embraced. Tidbits of Lily's laughter echoed in his heart, urging him forward. But then there it was, the familiar specter of doubt creeping back in. What if they laughed? What if the funds weren't approved? What if he failed Lily? The predictable counterarguments flicked like a film reel through his mind. He took a deep breath and paused, willing the negative thoughts to recede. This wasn't merely about convincing his colleagues or appeasing his boss, it was a personal mission, a means of evolving into a father who could inspire rather than simply provide. Jack stared at the blank spaces on the screen, then shifted his focus to the art scattered around the room, the very embodiment of unfiltered creativity and possibility. He turned to Lily's most recent piece, a chaotic swirl of colors that represented freedom and imagination. Yes, he murmured to himself. He could embrace that fervor. He began to draft specific sections detailing workshops, community collaborations, and vision statements, each layer reinforcing why this space mattered. As he illuminated details about local artists mentoring children, he felt a rush of optimism. Jack was not just conveying logistics, he was unveiling a vision that could change lives, including his own. However, his phone buzzed, a barrage of notifications revealing messages and reminders from work. The heavy weight of his corporate responsibilities threatened to smother his passion, and anxiety surged. Would his bosses recognize that this project could coexist with his current role? Or would they see it as yet another burden? Jack's fingers trembled over the keyboard, but he needed to harness this tension, turn it into fuel. He called on his experiences at work to affirm the value of fostering creativity. This could enhance employee engagement, boost morale, and reinforce community ties, he typed fiercely. With every keystroke, he solidified his commitment. He was evolving not just as a professional, but as a father. This was his chance to truly demonstrate a life built on courage and creativity. But as he refined the final touches, a nagging question lingered: could he truly balance his demanding job while nurturing this new project? Later that day, he surprised himself as he walked confidently into the office, the proposal printed and tucked under his arm. The nervous energy that accompanied him morphed into something liberating. He had taken decisive action, confronting the dread of uncertainty. Despite the path ahead remaining perilous, with obstacles veiled in unknown challenges, Jack felt an exhilarating anticipation. The time had come to share his project, to lay bare his aspirations before those who controlled the outcome. Jack! His colleague called from down the hall, drawing him back into reality. The moment had arrived, and the wide-eyed excitement mingled with simmering fear. Would this meeting solidify his vision, or would it unravel the hope he had staked everything on? As he stepped into the conference room, mind buzzing, he steadied himself for the impending confrontation. What he didn't know was that this meeting would not only test his resolve but also unveil deeper truths about himself he had yet to discover. Would he emerge with the creative space he craved, or would the weight of expectations crush his dreams once more? The conference room was colder than he expected. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an unflattering glare on the sleek, polished table surrounding him. Jack took a seat, swallowing hard as he glanced around. His colleagues were gathered, faces well practiced in professional neutrality, but it felt as if their eyes were pinched into skeptical slits. Would they see his vision or rip it apart? As the meeting commenced, Jack's heart raced. His boss, Mr. Williams, adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, exuding authority. Let us get to the point, Jack. What do you have for us? Jack's palms were clammy against the paper. He opened his brief, crumpled proposal, the words he had poured his soul into suddenly feeling inadequate. With every minute detail unfurling from his mouth, workshops, community art shows, mentorship programs, his confidence wavered. And how exactly do you envision this benefiting the company? Williams pressed, his voice a piercing contrast to the tail end of Jack's optimistic pitch. Jack paused, his breath hitching in his throat. He had rehearsed this answer, yet the pressure twisted it into an unsightly knot. By fostering local talent, we enhance our brand, improve employee engagement, and facilitate a positive company image, he stumbled, the certainty of his vision wavering in the hot, biting air. Before Mr. Williams could interrupt, a subtle shift occurred. A flicker of curiosity emerged among his colleagues, just a hint in the tilt of their heads. He needed to capitalize on this. Drawing a deep breath, he laid bare his need for this space to nurture creativity. Above all, this project is a chance for us to give back, to really scout for hidden talent in the community. A chance for all of us to rediscover our humanity. That comment caught fire, igniting an unexpected spark in the room. Yet the relief was short-lived when William's brow furrowed, the weight of doubt returning. Humanity doesn't pay the bills, Jack. What ensures profitability? Fingers tapping against the table made Jack's mind whirl. He challenged himself. The answer was latent within him. He needed to confront not just their skepticism, but his own inner turmoil. What if I told you this isn't just about money, but about innovation? Discovering a new wave of creativity that could lead to market shifts? An investment not strictly for profit but for pioneering a fresh approach to our present challenges? The silence in the room hung heavily, thick with disbelief. The eyes that had flickered with interest now narrowed. Doubt returned, sharpening every corner of his confidence. But as he glanced around, he saw the vibrant artwork Lady S created on his walls flash in his mind. The resilience in her strokes would inspire him. I want Lily to look up to me, to see that dreaming big is worth the risk. What if I fail? A voice sneered in the back of his mind. But what if I don't? He challenged in turn. In that moment of fierce internal dialogue, clarity surged. If we foster creativity, he continued fervently, we empower not just our employees but the future we envision in this sector, proving that the heart of a company lies in its ability to innovate and inspire. Yet even as his pulse quickened with newfound conviction, a still voice reminded him of the stakes. The deadline loomed. Would his passion be enough to win them over, or would he emerge without the allies he desperately needed? The meeting concluded in tight-lipped silence. There was no applause, no victorious sighs. Jack forced himself to meet the eyes of his colleagues, searching for any glimmer of belief. Mr. Williams stood, a smirk barely visible. We'll discuss this internally. But I must tell you, Jack, the edge in his voice sliced through the weight of uncertainty, don't take our time for granted. As the delegates filed out, Jack's heart sank. He had gambled, willing himself to be raw and vulnerable, but he was left hanging on the precipice of doubt and disdain. Would their deliberations result in anything resembling hope, or would he return to the very feeling he sought to escape? The bitter taste of failure. While Jack gathered his belongings, a sudden impulse surged. He couldn't allow this setback to bookend his aspirations. He had to find out if there were other allies in proximity who shared his vision. But as the door swung shut behind him, a nagging thought crept in. Who could he trust to share his dream with, and more importantly, what if he was the only one who truly believed in it? The reality of his personal and professional journey stretched before him, both daunting and exhilarating. It was now a matter of seeking opportunities or retreating into the confines of self-doubt. Jack took a deep breath, stepping forward into the possibilities that awaited him. The road ahead was uncharted, but it was clear he was done waiting. He was ready to forge his path, regardless of the obstacles ahead. Jack emerged from the conference room with a heaviness in his chest. His colleagues' indifferent faces haunted him as their silence swirled with doubt like a tempest in his heart. Determined not to succumb, he clenched his jaw and resolved to seek out those who might share his vision, or at least understand it. He went straight to his desk, a cluttered expanse of papers and notes reflecting his chaos of thought. Making a mental list, he remembered Angela, the marketing manager whose creative campaigns often turned heads. She was bold and imaginative, qualities he found inspiring. He also recalled Mike, his colleague from HR, who had a knack for nurturing talent and fostering growth. Would they see the potential he saw? Before he could hesitate, Jack sent a message to both of them, requesting a casual meeting to discuss some new ideas. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, and he wrestled with a wave of uncertainty. What if they dismissed the whole concept as foolish? Or worse, what if they didn't see the merit in pouring resources into the community? The ping of a reply disrupted his spiraling thoughts. Angela was in. He felt a surge of adrenaline, mixed with joy and apprehension. But what if he exposed his vulnerabilities only to be mocked? Shaking off the doubts, he focused on the conversation that awaited him. This was an opportunity, and he needed to step up. As the afternoon progressed, his two colleagues joined him at the small cafe across the street. The ambience buzzed with chatter and the aroma of coffee swirled around them. Jack felt the vibrant energy stimulate his creativity. After settling into their booth, he cleared his throat, eager to lay out his vision without reservation. Thanks for coming, you two. I wanted to talk about an idea I pitched in the meeting. It didn't go over well, but I think it has potential, Jack began, noticing Angela's quizzical expression. He shared the essence of his concept: developing workshops to scout local talent, the mentoring initiatives, the transformative impact on their brand. As he spoke, he watched their reactions intensely. Angela leaned in, her brow furrowed in concentration. Mike, ever the practical one, began to nod slowly, his mind clearly weighing the implications. I get where you're coming from. Creativity can set us apart in a saturated market, Angela remarked. But we need to ensure it aligns with our goals, Jack. Her words struck him with a mix of clarity and challenge. Achieving balance between creativity and profitability was crucial. Every instinct in his body told him that the key would be to define metrics that showed how this initiative could translate into tangible benefits for their company. Let us brainstorm metrics that would resonate with upper management, Mike suggested. A spark ignited in Jack, and he felt the swirl of hope surge within him. They were collaborating, envisioning together a team. The conversation flowed, and with each point they dissected, Jack's confidence grew. Ideas began to take shape, partnership models with local businesses, showcasing success stories from the workshops, improving employee satisfaction. The wheels of innovation turned, igniting the flicker of belief he desperately sought. As they wrapped up, Jack realized he had built a small coalition, one where ideas flourished instead of floundered. His heart warmed at the thought of turning hope into action. But just as he felt a sense of accomplishment, a nagging question surfaced: would bringing this rough framework back to his superiors be met with the same skepticism? Emboldened yet anxious, he acknowledged they needed evidence and a strategy to propel this further. Both Angela and Mike offered their resources: Angela's marketing acumen and Mike's people skills. Jack left the cafe invigorated, but the path ahead was steep. He had allies, but will they remain steadfast against the tide of corporate cynicism? In the quiet contemplation of his unit, the stakes loomed larger. Back at his desk, he reflected on the notion of hidden talents. He unearthed the potential within himself. But could he persuade others to do the same for this project? The moral dilemma spun within him. Success depended not merely on his vision but also on uniting disparate individuals and ideas into a cohesive force. The unease twisted, igniting a sense of urgency. He needed to redefine not just what he would present but how he would uplift the voices of those who would rally behind him. The time had come for a responsibility he hadn't anticipated. As evening approached, an idea struck him: what if he could amplify employee stories, showcasing their artistry and passion? Determined to take action, Jack crafted a draft that combined their input, the templates for a compelling presentation. Yet, an unsettling thought struck him: what if Williams was right? What if humanity really didn't pay the bills? Jack clenched his fists, refusing to let fear dictate his journey. The whispers of doubt slowly began to dissolve under the weight of his growing resolve. Would he confront the higher-ups with a fresh vision, or would he buckle under the skepticism? The stakes had never been higher, and the timeline was tight. He needed to prepare a pitch that couldn't be ignored. As anxiety churned in his gut, he understood he was at a crossing point. The moment of truth was approaching, and he had to step forward into it fully prepared, armed with the collective strength of newfound allies beside him. The question lingered, was he ready to face the scrutiny of the very people from whom he sought affirmation? It was time to brace himself for the confrontation that lay ahead. Jack stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his collar and straightening his tie. The stakes were high, and he could feel the anticipation thrumming in his veins. He was about to pitch his vision to the very same corporate team that had once left him feeling small and dismissed. But today, he wasn't just an employee who paid bills by doing jobs he found dull. Today, he was a man on a mission. 60 days had passed since he had first pitched the idea of creating a community art space. In that brief time frame, he had cultivated connections with local artists, secured initial funding through community sponsorships, and generated genuine interest among local schools. He had poured his heart into transforming a once trivial ambition into something substantial, something that could cradle both his aspirations and the future of children like Lily. Arriving at the conference room, he was greeted by a mix of familiar faces, his boss included. Mr. Williams looked less than pleased to see him, as if anticipating yet another round of the same stale presentations from the previous meetings. Jack shifted the papers in his hands and steadied his breath. Today was going to be different. "Jack, let us get started," Williams said, an impatient edge marking his tone. The air crackled with tension as Jack opened his presentation. His outlining slides featured vibrant images of the community art space, showcasing not just the artistic potential but also the detailed impact projections, increased employee engagement, support for local talent, strengthening community ties. He was ready to prove the value of his vision, and the momentary quiver in his voice dissipated as he shared the story behind the project, how it was driven by the desire to empower youth through creativity, much like his daughter. As he spoke, he visibly transformed. The passion surged through him like an electric current, every word carefully crafted to align with both the heart and the bottom line. As he closed his presentation, he confidently asked for their support. "Imagine a workspace where creativity isn't stifled but encouraged, a platform where we bring ideas to life. This initiative isn't merely altruism, it meets corporate objectives through community engagement and building a positive brand image." The silence that followed was loud enough to drown out the rush of adrenaline in Jack's ears. Would his colleagues recognize the potential? Would they support him? Then one voice rose. "Angela S. Jack S. right," she began, enthusiasm bubbling in her tone. "Art is more than aesthetic, it can be a powerful catalyst for innovation within our company and the community alike." Heads began to nod around the table, and Jack felt renewed energy coursing through him. Mike chimed in, supporting the practicality of Jack's plan while highlighting possible metrics for measuring engagement and success. With newfound synergy in the conference room, the tide had turned in Jack's favor. So did it seem. Finally, Mr. Williams leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Okay, but what about your current responsibilities? How do you plan to manage both?" Jack took a moment before responding. "I've already begun developing frameworks for delegation within my team." His voice was steady. "I'm committed to opening this space, and I'll delegate corporate tasks without sacrificing quality, ensuring I stay fully engaged. Transparency and organization will drive this project to success." The moment lingered, and the shift in energy felt palpable. One by one, his colleagues began clapping, voices of approval echoing in the room. Mr. Williams remained contemplative, but the skepticism in his eyes was fading. "Let us give it some time. Develop a trial period and measurable goals," he conceded. "If we see actual engagement and community benefit, we can consider long-term management. But it'll be on you to oversee." Jack's heart raced. This was the breakthrough he had fought for. This was validation not only for his vision but for his growth as an individual, a professional, and a father. Weeks turned into months as the community art space began to take root under Jack's leadership. Children and artists came together, painting murals and working on projects that instilled pride and inspiration across the neighborhood. Jack's evenings, once filled with chores and exhaustion, morphed into vibrant paint-splattered sessions that nurtured creativity and connection. When he turned to Lily one evening, showing off pictures from the newly opened art space, he felt his heart swell with pride. "People are coming together to create just like you do. You must visit with your friends." "But Daddy," she whispered earnestly, "you're a hero for doing this." Jack realized that the journey to establishing the space had unveiled something far more precious, his true self. He had conquered the fears that once encased him in their grip. He was not merely a single dad struggling to make ends meet, he was a creator, a leader, and an inspiration. The weight of his initial fears now shifted, grounded in the knowledge he had overcome them, proving it was possible to build a fulfilling life while supporting the dreams of those he loved. Finally, basking in this realization, Jack leaned back in the armchair, watching as a parade of local artists filled the community space with laughter and creativity. He felt a glow of satisfaction and fulfillment settle within him. He was right where he belonged. It was more than artistry, it was clearly a commitment to living authentically while nurturing the dreams that filled his life with purpose. You need to subscribe now to witness more breathtaking transformations and emotional journeys. Leave a like now to keep this inspiring content alive. It absolutely matters. Comment below your thoughts on Jack's incredible journey and your theories about what it means to pursue dreams. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see this conclusion. Let them be inspired, too.